I've had one of the busiest seasons of my life in a very long time. It's been 7 weeks actually 7 full weeks since the beginning of 2026. And I have been blown away by the countless number of opportunities that have been presented, the invitations that have come, the doors that have been opened because I said yes to bringing back Podcast Answer Man, my brand. And I will say that with the amount of ideas and options and all of those other things, I'm the type of person where I would tend to feel a bit overwhelmed by just how much there is to process. And I will say also that over the last several weeks, I've been feeling some of that tension within. But thankfully, I have avoided overwhelm overall. And in fact, the season that I'm in right now, while there's endless opportunities, it seems, lots of invitations, I feel more grounded and more clear now than I have in a very long time. And a lot of that has to do with attention, focus, and some powerful conversations with people who I trust. And I'm going to get into all of that in this episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. I'm not playing my intro music this week, so hello, this is the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. I'm Cliff Ravenscraft, and I'm very interested in helping you take your message, your business, and your life to the next level. Welcome. All right, so before I get into the depth of some things that have been going on in my world, I want to share with you a little tangent, something that has actually helped me have a little bit of the personal side of life. I'm the type of person when somebody says, "Hey, Cliff, so what have you been up to lately?" I typically am the kind of guy that says, well, here's what I've been doing with this part of my work, and this is this aspect of work, and this is some of the work I've been doing here, and some of the work. It's like, oh, yeah, and Cliff, what's been going on in your world outside of work? And I'm like, well, Stephanie and I have been watching a couple television shows, and we go shopping on the weekend. It's like, however, that's not been the case during these past few weeks. Now, I will say there was a little bit of a season right after Christmas and going into the first 2 weeks of 2026 where I was burning the candle at both ends of the stick because there was so much work to be done. In fact, there's an episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show where I kind of talked about that season. It was a behind the scenes look, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm wondering, episode 803, behind the scenes of bringing Podcast Answer Man back and podcasting and bringing back podcasting A to Z. That was recorded back on January 5th. So that was the first week of 2026. I was burning the candle late. Let's just say that. I was staying up late. I was getting up early, and there was lots to be done. Thankfully, I knew then that was just for a season, and I'm also very thankful that that season has now passed. Although I will tell you what hasn't passed is the number of things that are on my to-do list of things that are optional for me, paths that I could go down, the number of opportunities, the number of doors I could walk through, the number of relationships I could solidify. They're plenty. So much so that if I was to say, you know what, I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock every morning and I'm going to come straight down and start on these projects and move the needle forward on these opportunities. And then I was going to basically say, you know what, I'm going to work all the way down until about 9 or 10 p.m. each evening, and then finally call it a day, go get a couple of hours of sleep and get up at 4 o'clock. I could do that every single day, 7 days a week for the next 5 to 6 months and not exhaust all of the opportunities that have already presented themselves to me. And crazy enough, so many of these opportunities that are presented to me, the ones that I am pursuing, they're only going to open up more opportunities, more invitations. And I will say that if it weren't for the understanding of how going too hard for too long leads to burnout, and if it weren't for having meaningful relationships in my life with people who understand the things that I'm going after, such as other business owners, other people who understand the ebbs and flows of business, other people who are content creators, other people who have personal brands, other people who have gone this path before and with me throughout the years. If I didn't have those people in my life, I'd probably just keep doing trial and error. And I remember those days doing it all isolated on my own. And I would just get overwhelmed and feel like I need to pursue everything just in case the things that I chose to do weren't the right things. That's how I used to do things. And it's not how I do it anymore. I surround myself with some very important people in my life. And I'll share more about that at the end of the episode. But I'm going to tell you one of the things that I've learned is that it's okay to still stop at the end of a work day and call it a day around 4 or 5 or 5:30. And some people might think, well, of course that's when you stop. You might think that, but if you're not solopreneur, if you're not a business owner, you may not be aware of, especially if you're somebody like me who's doing work that you love, that feels so aligned with who you are and what you're on this earth to do, that you just love it. There's a temptation to work late into the evenings and through the weekends and early in the mornings. And I've been one in seasons to give into that. And I intentionally made that decision a couple weeks back. My body told me after I got back from Podfest Expo, it said, hey, you've got a little bit of a cold here. Actually, you had a significant cold here. You have a mild case of the flu. Whatever you've got going on, you need some rest. And so I listened to my body. And one of the things that I gave into was a little bit of an obsession with an ebook reader, a little mini Kindle device. Although it's not Kindle, it's not made by Amazon. I talked about this little device back in episode number 807. It is the XT E-Ink X4 4.3-inch e-ink e-reader device that fits into the palm of my hand. That's as much as I'm going to talk about this little device as far as the details of it. If you want to know more, there's lots more information back in episode number 807 of this episode. But one of the unexpected results of my obsession with this little handheld pocket reader is the fact that I've gone missing on TikTok. Well, in fact, my phone has gone missing several times. And what I mean by that is that this little pocketable ebook reader is always in my pocket. Whereas I thought that it would always be in my pocket at the same time my phone would always be in my pocket. Because up until recently, there's never been a time where if I get up and walk away from my desk or walk away from my bedside table, that my phone is not in my pocket, except for the last couple of weeks. That's changed. There's been a number of times where, wow, I need to run back to my office and get my phone. Why? Because every time I get up from my desk and I go and have lunch or I do this or do that, I'm taking my little e-reader out of my pocket and reading. So much so that over the last weekend, I chose that I was not going to do work, and instead I was going to read. And there was a book that I wanted to read, Getting Naked by Patrick Lencioni, I think is his name. And I read this. It's about a 200-page book. It's written as a fable. It was a really compelling story. Really enjoyed it. It's been sitting on my to-do list to read. And I'm like, I'm going to read this on this little device. And I read that book in a single day. And now that's not overly impressive for a lot of people who do a lot of long reading sessions, although I didn't do a lot of long reading sessions. I just did a lot of short reading sessions anywhere and everywhere I went on that Saturday. It was amazing. And then at one point, and by the way, I know this sounds like I'm going on a tech tangent here. I promise you, if you listen to this, you're going to hear how all of this fits into the overall theme of me not being overwhelmed when there's so much opportunity, when there are so many invitations, when there are so many different things to pursue, so many different items on my to-do list or task list or project list of things that I could pursue, where it seems like everything on a scale of 1 to 10, a majority of it's an 8, 9, or 10 as far as importance and possibility for growth and all these other things is like, oh my gosh. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to continue on this, what seems to be a tech tangent. And I am going to go, and it's going to sound like a very detailed tech tangent, but there is a theme. I've outlined this episode ahead of time. And so there is a theme. Stick with me. All right. So I'm reading this Getting Naked by Patrick Lencioni. And then what I did is at one point, I'm like, oh, you know what? I have one Audible credit before my credits renew. I'm an annual subscriber to Audible instead of monthly, and I get 12 credits every year, and I can use those credits anytime I want. It's $120 a year. It comes out to $10 a credit. And as a result of that, I can use my credits anytime I want. And of course, if I run out of credits, they give you the option to buy 3 more at a discounted rate. So for me, it's the best way to be an Audible subscriber. But in this tech tangent, I will tell you, I almost dropped it and ended up saving some money in the process. I'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. So I went and got the audiobook for Getting Naked by Patrick Lencioni. And I'm reading as I'm listening to the audiobook on Audible. And I'm just flipping through on this little pocket e-reader. And then sometimes I just put the e-reader in my pocket and I continue to listen while I'm fixing my lunch or something like that. And then I would sit down once my lunch was finished and I'm like, oh, okay, this is where I'm at in the book. And I would pull out my little pocket reader and I'd get to that place where it's matched up and I'm going through again. Made it super convenient for me just to go through and do this. Now, you might think, and I've been tempted to think, Cliff, couldn't you do this on your phone with the Kindle device? The answer is yes, I could. The Kindle app on my phone could do this, but there's something about an e-ink reader that is more captivating for me. The screen, there's less distraction. One of the things I can tell you is in the weeks that I have now had, and actually it may have only been a week now, in the just over 1 week of owning this little pocket e-ink device, I have cut my time on TikTok by 90% minimum. And I don't feel bad about how much time I was spending on TikTok previously. I enjoy TikTok, but not as much as I have enjoyed reading recently. And so while I've always had the ability to do what I'm doing now with an audio book in the background and following along on a screen, I could have done that with my phone. But the thing is I will say there's just something about pulling out my phone, going to do something, and then being tempted to open up a different app and getting distracted and finding myself in a TikTok scroll session when that it's like, oh, I went in to check my calendar for tomorrow to add this reminder. And I'm like, what? How did that happen? I know I'm probably the only one. I'm sure that's never happened to you. Anyway, so this is the first thing is like, oh my gosh, because this little thing's in my pocket at all times and it's distraction free, I'm not pulling up a bunch of other apps because there's no notifications. There's nothing that's distracting me. I am getting through books so much faster. Then something else happened. My friend Mark Mason recommended a no, a fiction novel, not a nonfiction. He actually recommended a fiction novel, 780 pages. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to check it out. And sure enough, I got the book. I converted it over to EPUB, put it on my little reader, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And I started, it's a page turner. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm really enjoying this book. And I'm like, okay, I'm only going to read one more chapter, and I'm going to go to bed. And then I get to the end of the chapter, and I'm like, oh, okay, just one more chapter. And I get to the end of the chapter, and it's like, it's going on and on and on. By the way, the book that I'm reading right now, it's called Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown. It is so good. I'm totally interested in the whole research around consciousness, and it's a lot of fun. It is a page turner, and I'm 78% of the way through it in just 3 days. And I think I'm on I'm on chapter 112. So I've been barreling through this. Now, I will say that I had the idea as I got into this. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to fix my breakfast the other morning. And I didn't want to put the book down. This is how addicting this book has been. And again, remember, for me, it's important to have this distraction in this season for me. It's important for me to have my morning free. I'm not rushing to get down into the office to take action on all of the opportunities. I want some margin in my life. I want to be able to have these things that I'm enjoying. And so it's nice to have this book that at the end of a day at 5:00, instead of being tempted to stay down here and work, I'm like, hey, I got time. I can get another chapter or two in here before Stephanie and I sit down to do whatever we're going to do this evening. And then after we head to bed, I'm like, hey, I can get another couple of chapters in here. And it's been so fun to have this little device. And not that there's anything wrong with TikTok, but I will tell you, I feel like there's so much more value. I get a lot of value out of watching the things that I watch on TikTok, but I will tell you, I get so much more value out of reading a nonfiction book, personal and professional development, or I get a lot of enjoyment and I get a lot of entertainment out of a fiction novel, such as the one that I'm reading right now. And so it's just been so enjoyable. But anyway, I digress. I got up the other morning and I'm sitting there literally flipping through, and I'm like, okay, I'm brushing my teeth and I'm trying to read and flip the pages. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and get the Audible book for Secret of Secrets. And then I remembered, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just used my last Audible credit. And I could go and redo it, except that in 2 weeks, my credits renew. And so I'm like, okay, I can wait 2 weeks. And then I said, wait a second, to be able to read books on my little shrink raid Kindle device here, this little tiny ebook reader that fits into the palm of my hand, that slides into my pocket, any pocket, I had to actually learn how to create a workflow for myself to take purchased books and turn them into EPUBs. And then I remembered I have the 11 Reader app. Now, 11 Reader app is an app created by 11 Labs. And it's called the 11 Reader. You can get this on the iPhone. I'm sure they probably have an Android version as well. You can check that to be sure. But anyway, the 11 Reader app on the iPhone, I've had such great experience playing with it. But the thing is that I didn't want to read the books that they had available. And I didn't have all of my EPUBs converted and all these other things back in the day. I'm like, but I do now. And so I went into the phone and I took my EPUB version of Secret of Secrets and I put it into the 11 Reader app to have it read it to me. And it has a very awesome voice that reads this to me. And I'm like, George, thank you so much for narrating this book for me. And so I would just start that in the 11 Reader app and I would be listening to it as I'm flipping through. But then when I'm having breakfast, now it's reading it to me. And then I'm like, okay, I'll just leave my e-reader in my pocket and I'll just listen to it while I'm fixing my breakfast. And then when I sit down to eat my breakfast, I have the book in front of me and I can still follow along. I catch up to what I missed just by listening to it. And I'm like, oh, this is very nice. And then I realized, 11 Reader, the free version, only gives you 10 hours per month. And because this is such a large book, I'm going to exceed my 10 hours with this app narrating this to me. And I'm like, that's no big deal. I'll go and I'll sign up. You can either pay for blocks of additional hours of content consumption. You can buy another 10 hours or 30 hours or something like that. And if you pay for them, they don't expire for 12 months after you've purchased them. So, and plus you're still going to get your 10 hours every month on the free plan. However, the unlimited plan with them is just $99 a year. And I'm like, I'm almost ready to buy this. But then I remembered, wait a second, I am a Speechify subscriber. So I already use Speechify for text-to-speech, and I use the Chrome plugin that reads to me all the time. And so when I'm having a conversation with ChatGPT, I very rarely ever read what ChatGPT says. In fact, I just click a little button, and it uses Speechify, and Erica reads everything to me. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, ChatGPT has a very specific voice. Her name is Erica, and she's from Speechify. It's like this is who ChatGPT. This is what she sounds like. So I have been using Speechify. I've already been. It's as far as software as a service apps go, it's one of the more expensive subscriptions that I have for something that just reads a bunch of text to me. But I will tell you right now, I'm more than halfway through my second year, and it is a subscription I wouldn't even consider canceling. Nothing else has come close to Speechify when it comes to that Chrome plugin that will just read things to me. Also, there'll be times when I get an email in my inbox and somebody's written me a little bit of a novel in an email, and I just click the Speechify button and it reads that email to me, and I can have Erica read it to me at 1.85 almost 2x speed, and I get through all of these long texts, and I'm like, this is amazing. But I remembered there's a Speechify app, and while back when I signed up for Speechify, I wasn't doing a lot with EPUBs, but now I'm doing a lot with EPUBs, and as a result of that, I'm like, oh, wait a second. Let me go look at the Speechify app, because if I remember correctly, it will do exactly what 11 Reader is doing. And sure enough, it does it. And the user interface is remarkably better than the 11 Reader app. Now, the 11 Reader app is great. I would say it's a 9 out of 10 experience. But and the voices with 11 Reader are amazing. 11 Labs does a ton of great stuff with their voices. However, Speechify is 10 out of 10 on the user interface of it actually reading an EPUB. The way that you can browse through chapters is different. The way that you can scroll up and down, the way that you can just so many things about the Speechify way of doing it. The only thing is I had grown quite fond of George reading to me from the 11 Reader app. But that's okay, because I found a voice with Speechify that it does the trick. In fact, I'm going to tell you which voice I went with here, and I'm going to go to Dan Brown here, and it's Benjamin. So it's Benjamin under the narrator tab, and I absolutely love it. So now I'm like, okay, I still have 11 Reader, and I still love George. I get 10 hours a month. And I still see me using 11 Labs every now and then, just if I want a refreshing George voice to read some things to me. And so that may very well happen, even though Speechify has a better user interface for reading these EPUB files. So it's a little bit crazy, but I'm going back and forth and I'm sharing all these things. And then I'm like, now I don't even know if I'm actually going to keep my Audible subscription. I'm thinking about canceling Audible. In fact, I went so far as to cancel my subscription. I went into Audible. I said, I want to cancel my subscription. And they said, are you sure? And I'm like, I am sure. They said, what about this option? And I'm like, no, I'm really sure. Please cancel. What if we do this? And if finally they said, hey, Cliff, you know what? You've been with us for so long. We'd like to give you this offer. And it was an offer where you could get 12 credits and where each credit was closer. Don't hold me to this, but if I remember correctly, I think each credit was like $6, came out to $6 per credit. And typically it's about $10.50 a credit. So this was significantly less. And I'm like, you know what? I still like audio dramas. I like to listen to some BBC audio dramas of Doctor Who, and there's other kinds of audible narrated books, Ray Porter and who's Ray? Then there's somebody else. I can't remember his name, but anyway, there are some really good. I think Ray Porter and R.C. Bray. There's some amazing narrators out there for some books, and I probably would prefer to have those. And so I'm like, I'll go ahead and keep it for that thing. So they gave me that deal for 1 year, and it's going to renew at the same price it was going to be before I decided to cancel. So I decided to keep it. But now I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I have this new process in my mind where I'm going to get every book that I buy, I'm going to turn it into an EPUB. I'm going to put it on my little pocket reader. It's going to go with me everywhere. And I'm going to put every single one of these books into my Speechify app, and I'm going to have Benjamin read it to me. Or there's a number of other narrator voices that are really good, and I might switch it up from time to time. But I just see myself really doubling down on the amount of book content that I'm going to consume in the rest of this year, the remainder of this year. There's a number of personal and professional development books that have been piling up. I've been buying books and not yet reading them. I read a lot, but my problem has always been, where's my Kindle at? And it's like, and there'll be a number of times where I drive somewhere, I'm away from the house, and I'm like, my Kindle's back at home. And I hear I could sit and read for 25 minutes in this little space of time. And yes, I could pull out my phone. But in my experience, every single time I pull out my phone, and one could argue, Cliff, hello, have some self-discipline. Just go in, ignore all of the notifications, and just open the Kindle app and just do it. And I was like, and even if I do that, I've noticed that I'm like, I go in and I'm like, oh, let me highlight that. Oh, let me copy that. Let me go over and put it in my journal. Oh, here comes this thing. And here's this. I was like, and then anyway. I love this process. All I'm getting is that with what sounds to be like a tech tangent is really a story about attention. It's a story about knowing what's most important to me and creating an environment to filter out all of the noise. That's what this has all been about. This is about intentionally choosing reading over scrolling TikTok, or intentionally choosing reading over responding instantly to all of those people who are text messaging me. This is about prioritizing reading over scrolling through social media apps and reading comments and DMs and all that other stuff. So much of my work is devoted to doing those things. So much of my communication with clients and potential clients and peers, and it's all within business hours and related to business hours. And what I'm saying is that, wow, having an e-ink device that's a single device that doesn't do all of the things that all of my other tablets and phones and everything else could do, it has helped me keep reading a priority. And it's helped me become less distracted and also very much focused on consuming the content that I find most valuable. So That's the big takeaway there. Now, I will share with you that while that sounds like this big, huge cliff, man, I can't believe you're so excited about an ebook reader that fits in your pocket and in the palm of your hand, and the fact that you found an app that will read to you with some fantastic voices that sound like professional narrators, so you don't have to get the audiobook version of every one of those things, which, by the way, some audiobook narrations are terrible. Anyway, I love that this has given me that escape from being tempted in this season of my life to burn the candle at both ends of the stick. It's given me something enjoyable to look forward to after work, and that is essential for somebody who loves the work that I do as much as I do. I am obsessed with what I do for a living. I love it. And so I love that I have something else to capture my attention. And that's why I shared all of those things. It's one of the reasons that I shared all of that with you, is to say one of the reasons why I've not been overwhelmed lately is because for the past week, I have found something that has been rapturing my attention, and I've been thoroughly entertained by, how many did I say? I'm going to open it up. 112 chapters. 112 chapters of this book and the entire book of Getting Naked by Peter Lencioni. And I have a feeling that I'm going to be sharing with you lots of insights from books that I'm going to be reading in the days and weeks ahead. The next topic is somewhat tangentially related. Something else that's been going on in my world is an email newsletter system that absolutely has broken. You see, prior to bringing back my podcast Answer Man brand, I had a great system for managing my email newsletters. And this system basically hinged around two decisions. Number one, that I would pretty much avoid subscribing to any email newsletter unless it was a newsletter where I, if I had time, would look forward to reading every single email that's released. And that includes, based upon how frequently that email newsletter creator sends out email newsletter updates. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep that in mind. And anytime somebody got too aggressive and sent out too many emails, I would just unsubscribe. Even though I like their content, if it was just too much, I would just do that. As a result of it, prior to bringing back Podcast Answer Man, I was subscribed to 3 email newsletters. One was Rich Litvin, one was Steve Chandler, both of them related to the topic of coaching, and the third one was an AI newsletter from Michael Hyatt. And I even paid for a premium version of that newsletter to get extra content from him. And the other part of my system, so beyond being very selective of what I subscribe to, the other part is that no email newsletter content ever hit my email inbox. I use a special filtered email address. I'm a Google email user. So you can put a plus newsletter keyword in your thing. So whatever your email address is, mine's cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. And if I want to, I could put Cliff plus and then a keyword at cliffravenscraft.com. And anything that's after plus pretty much is ignored. It goes straight to your email inbox anyway. But I actually have them, when I go and I subscribe to a newsletter, I subscribe with that plus newsletter in the email address. And then what I've done is I've set a filter up such that anything that gets sent to that email address with the plus newsletter in it automatically skips the inbox, automatically gets the label newsletter. And then over on the left-hand side, I created it to I set it up so that the system always shows me the label newsletter, and it's in bold, and it has a number in parentheses to show me the number of unread messages that are associated to that label. And so I'd always know just looking at my email. And so when I got to inbox 0, I would easily see over there, oh, wow, there's a couple email newsletters. And sure enough, I'd go in and I'd read whatever Rich Litvin, Steve Chandler, or Michael Hyatt had to share. However, When I made the decision to bring back Podcast Answer Man, one of the things that I knew is that I wanted to catch up on a lot of the technology that's happened in the world of podcasting, and especially what's going on now. And as a result of that, I did a couple of things. I subscribed to a number of podcast industry related newsletters, one from Podfest Expo, one from Podcast Movement, the Pod News, and a couple of others. The problem is that multiple of those email multiple times a week, if not every Monday through Friday. And then there was a couple of others. And I also subscribed to the email newsletters of a few of my friends and peers because I wanted to see what they're doing with their newsletters. Not necessarily because I need to hear they're my friends and peers, so I know what's going on in the world. I talk to them quite frequently, and most of their content is geared towards a message for their clients or customers or community, and not necessarily for me. And so I just wanted to kind of get a feel for, what are they releasing? What are they sharing? What's it look like? I would just like to see that. Well, that's where my system absolutely broke down. And in the past 3 weeks alone, I'd grown to the point where I used to have 0 unread messages in my newsletter. And this morning I had over 50 unread email newsletters. And the problem is that first of all, the good news is that I have received a lot of valuable updates related to the podcasting industry, a lot of valuable insights, a lot of valuable things that are good for me to know as the Podcast Answer Man. They inform how I communicate or what I communicate to people as the Podcast Answer Man. I form opinions. It helps shape some of the topics that I'm covering because I know other people are going to want to know my thoughts on these things. So that's been wonderful. One of the things that I noticed, however, is all 5 of those industry-related podcasts all had their own unique take and perspective on it. So it's like every single day I'm getting 5 emails about the same thing. And also these friends and peers are also sharing sometimes about some of these same things and or other things. And I'm like, this is just maddening. This is why I really miss the days. I miss Google Reader. I miss the days of RSS blogs. I miss the days where you could just subscribe to and just see these things and you could hit mark all as read and all of these things. I hate that all of this stuff goes into one label. In fact, I may even go in and create a label at some point just for the Michael Hyatt newsletter. And then I'll create a separate one for coaching, I'm just going to call it the Rich and Steve newsletter label. So it's like, okay, here's a Michael Hyatt unread message. Here's a message from Rich and or Steve. And these are the 2 guys from the Prosperous Coach Method for creating clients, the guys who wrote the book, The Prosperous Coach. So, and then I will just have my newsletter. But that had not occurred to me until I just said that out loud, by the way. So what did I do? Instead, I went in and unsubscribed from all but 2 of the podcast industry. I stayed connected to the Pod News email, which I think is still every Monday through Friday. It's a bit much. But only having 1 of those instead of 5 of those each week, or several of those each Monday through Friday, only having 1 to quickly glance through and then hit, okay, it's now marked as unread, or it's marked as read, and it's no longer going to show as an item in there. And then I went into all my friends and peers and I just unsubscribed. And so I'm very sorry if you are my friend or peer and you saw that I was subscribed to your email newsletter a couple weeks back, and now you just got a notice that says that Cliff has unsubscribed from you. It's nothing personal, I promise. You're still in my life. You're still my friend. You're still my peer. But I just needed to, it was just too much content, too much noise. So Yeah, that's what I did. I went in and I'm like, there are too many things competing for my attention, and one of the things that I can do is reduce the amount of information that's flowing out at me. But also asking myself, hey, out of all of these podcast related newsletters, which ones are the most important? Which ones give me, I think, the level of detail that I need to know about these important topics that are happening in the industry? And Pod News was top of the list. And I've figured that right now I have a very good feeling and relationship with the folks over at Podfest Expo, and I want to stay in touch with what they're putting out. So those are the ones. And so even though a lot of great content is amazing to have access to, too much of it stacked on top of each other can be overwhelming and it becomes too much noise. So I made a decision to unsubscribe from all of that stuff that was not exactly what I felt like I needed in my email inbox. And so that's what I did. A third thing that's been going on lately is having many conversations. I've been doing these 30-minute connect calls with so many people that I've met at Podfest, so many people that I've been reconnecting with. Since bringing back Podcast Answer Man, the number of people that I haven't spoken to in years, but were very much a part of my life on an ongoing, regular basis back when I was doing Podcast Answer Man, they're excited. They're like, Cliff, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how excited I am that you brought back Podcast Answer Man. And the reason why they've told me this over and over again, they said, listen, I've been wanting a trusted resource that I can feel confident referring people in my community to for podcasting help. And there's been a void ever since you shut down Podcast Answer Man just over 8 years ago. And so all of a sudden, that flow of referrals has been turned back on. And so not only have I been having conversations with those individuals, I've been having lots of conversations with the people those individuals have been referring to me. Also, I've built over the years many meaningful relationships with founders of companies that have created basically some of the biggest brands related to the podcasting industry. People who have started industry conferences, people who have started major software as a service solutions. Lots of deep relationships have been built over the years. And since coming back as the Podcast Answer Man, been having lots of conversations with them. There's even a possibility, I'm not going to share too much detail with you, but I will just say there's been a proposal for a very significant long-term sponsorship for Podcast Answer Man, the podcast. Nothing has been decided yet. It's just a very thoughtful and very respectful conversation that feels very aligned right now. And we're still in ongoing conversation about it. So that could be, as I'll share the word significant, and I'm excited about that. One of the best things that's been happening as a result of these conversations, as I said, the people that have turned that referral back on, that they're like, Cliff, go talk to Cliff. He's back. He's the guy. And so what's been most interesting is the number of people who come to me, and it starts around the technology of podcasting. The conversation begins there, and just how naturally that has flowed into a discussion about business strategy and also very deep mindset related conversations about what it means to turn their dreams into reality. And so even though I've brought back Podcast Answer Man, it has fed into what I've most wanted to do all of these years as what I was calling Mindset Answer Man. And so I thought when I brought back Podcast Answer Man, it was going to be very important for me to bring back podcasting A to Z. But I've talked about that recently, and I found that most of the conversations I had, they're like, Cliff, I can get the technical ins and outs of how to launch a podcast, but man, I want somebody with your experience, your level of credibility, the the insights that you've had with working so many people. I just would love to talk strategy with you. I'd like to map this out. I'd like to get your feeling about this. And then all of a sudden that leads to something even bigger, something deeper. And it's been amazing. Another thing that has happened is podcast interview requests have been flowing in steadily. And these are significant podcasters who have my exact ideal client. They have built large audiences. They have very loyal audiences. And I'm very aware that many people out there who are looking to get in front of their exact ideal client typically have to pay for services like Interview Connections or Interview Valet or Podmatch to help them get booked on shows with the right audience. And I don't take lightly the fact that this is just flowing to me naturally as a result of just the amount of investment I've put into the podcasting space over the years. And I see it as both in a huge honor, and I see it as a responsibility to be very judicial about what I say yes to protect my energy, because the number of invitations that are coming in, I could book myself 5-10 interviews a week if I wanted to. I'm very intentionally not doing that. I'm limiting myself to about 1, 2, or 3 interviews per week. And the reason why is because I want to come in with the energy to each of those. I want to come in fresh. I don't want to just show up and like, yep, I'm here for the next one. And I've done that before, and I don't ever want to do that again. So it's been very, very nice to have those invitations flowing. And it's been very important for me in the idea of, keeping down the number of doors, the number of opportunities to really discern and slow down. It's like, listen, you know what? I'm definitely interested in your show. Can you reach out to me in 6 weeks from now? Because right now I don't want to book you for more than 6 weeks from now, because if I do that I don't know what other speaking arrangements that I'll have, and I don't want to come back to you in 6 weeks and say, hey, I know we've been booked for the last 3.5 weeks and something's come up and I have to reschedule with you. I don't want to do that, so I'm booked for the next 6 weeks. Reach out to me then. I've made a note to myself that when you reach out to me, you're going to be at the top of the list of people I say yes to. So this has been very good. If there's one thing I know after years of building a coaching business, and since I've implemented the Prosperous Coach method for creating clients based upon the book, The Prosperous Coach, written by Steve Chandler and Rich Litvin, it is this: consistently having conversations with interesting people who are doing interesting things on an ongoing, regular basis is vital. And I will say that I have not been this consistent since the pandemic. And I love where these conversations are taking place. Conversations that are taking place with peers, mentors, friends, founders of companies. That has been amazing. People who are being referred to me as potential clients, people who are just saying, Cliff, I want to jump on a call and run some things by you. Not every conversation leads to something where they become a paid client, or it turns into a sponsor, or it turns into this opportunity. That's not the important. But what is important is that I'm consistently making room for conversations with people. And it's because I'm having these conversations, while not everything leads to some, moving the business forward, every single conversation brings about clarity. And, it's these conversations that help me understand. It's like, wait a second, I don't need to go and update all of my tutorials for podcasting A to Z and bring back that 4-week group coaching program. In fact, it's because of that the Next Level Mastermind has reemerged. And so with that being said, I want to talk about the fact, and it's, I think the last thing on my outline here, is that there's lots of moving pieces. I started with my tangent on my my obsession with reading and my enjoyment and my entertainment as it relates to reading this novel by Dan Brown, The Secret of Secrets. And it's just like, this is so much fun. But also it's been important to have that thing away from my business because there are so many pieces moving. So as I said, there's been 7 full weeks since the beginning of 2026 now. The Next Level Mastermind has reemerged. It is going strong. It is in full swing. There's a few open seats for anybody who is on the entrepreneurial path and you want to do life with other service-first entrepreneurs who are also content creators, who are looking to be able to have the same kind of conversations that I'm having with my mastermind group members in the green room that help keep me grounded, help keep me focused on the things that are most important, bouncing ideas off of, sharing, and just getting so much clarity. If you are looking for that, and you'd like to have one of these seats in the Next Level Mastermind, email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and you and I can have a 30-minute conversation about what the Next Level Mastermind is, and we can determine whether or not it's a fit for you. Just email me if you're interested. But anyway, the Next Level Mastermind is back, is one of the moving pieces. I've booked 2 additional speaking engagements at conferences. Just recently, I've got 2 more potential events that are on the horizon. One of them I've already submitted a speaker session for, and those are just the ones that I'm aware of right now. I happen to know that some more are going to emerge in the weeks and months ahead. So I am back on the speaking circuit once again. I love it. Next, I recently hosted a virtual workshop on the power of the podcast mini-series strategy. This was to a group of entrepreneurial women in Nashville, Tennessee. It was a 45-minute workshop with a 15-minute Q&A session. It was absolutely amazing. In fact, several other invitations to teach that exact workshop have already come in as a result of the people who were there for that particular workshop. I'm already booked as a guest. Once again, it'll be the 3rd time I've been on Smart Passive Income with my friend Pat Flynn. And we're going to be talking about the return of Podcast Answer Man, the power of a personal brand, and why audio podcasting is still a strong path for becoming a thought leader and building a personal brand. That is going to be huge when that audience, because that audience knows who I am, and that audience has always known about the Podcast Answer Man brand, but there's a ton of people out there that listen to Pat that are quite aware that I left the Podcast Answer Man brand, and so that is going to bring on an onslaught of people. I was like, oh my gosh, Cliff has brought back the Podcast Answer Man podcast. I'm going to go subscribe. I just know that's going to happen because, well, I've got a lot of data that supports the fact that that's about ready to happen. Same thing is going to happen. I have been intentionally slowing down the rollout of tapping into these relationships that I have with my peers and my mentors. And the reason for that is because there needed to be a lot of things built up. I needed to get lots of clarity about my messaging. Who am I helping? What is the problem that they're having that is the best thing for me to speak to right now? I'm glad that I did not go out there and just say, hey, Pat and John Lee Dumas, Amy Porterfield, Michael Hyatt, let me get on here and then promote Podcasting A to Z. That would not have been a good idea. Instead, I know for a fact what I'm going to do when I get on to Pat's show. I am going to promote thought leadership and also audio podcasting and the personal brand, but also with the story of the entrepreneurial journey and the value of the mastermind group experience. And it's going to bring people over to Podcast Answer Man, and Podcast Answer Man is naturally going to bring them and make them aware of the Next Level Mastermind and business strategy and mindset work that they could do with me. So yeah, so there's already a lot of conversations happening, and I've already booked the first big return of Podcast Answer Man interview with Pat on his podcast. The prosperous coach pipeline for creating clients is beginning to fill once again. And it's filling, I should say, with my exact match for my ideal client. And I love that. Another moving piece that's been going on is that I've been given demos of my vibe coding software that I've been talking about. It's called Podbriefer. And a growing number of people have already been begging me, Cliff, you've got to give me paid access. I'll pay you $20 a month for this right here, right now. It's not quite ready for that yet. And it's a little bit of a distraction to some of the other things I've got going on. So I've been intentionally saying, you know what? I am going to do no more development on this vibe coding software except for on the weekends. And it's Saturday as I'm recording this, and I haven't touched it today. So it is one of those open doors. It is definitely an opportunity. It has massive potential, but right at this very moment, within this next 2 to 3 weeks, it would be a distraction. It may end up being something that 2 years from now might be a very significant thing that's a part of my life and stuff like that. But right now, I'm slow rolling everything. It's not the only opportunity. It's not the only door that's open. That's the thing. The opportunities are flowing. There's so much more that I can't even talk about. So just know that things have been flowing. Anyway, at the same time, it's more important than ever that I just don't try to take in everything. And one of the things that's been so great is to have conversations with my Green Room Mastermind, not just in our weekly meetings, but I've been jumping on one-on-one calls with them throughout the week, sharing with them, you're not going to believe this person that just called. You're not going to believe this offer that was just made. And just having that ability to just talk it through. But not only that, I've been talking with the members in our next level mastermind. This is my paid mastermind group. I'm sharing with them in my wins of the week. Hey guys, this is an opportunity that this invitation just came in. This person just made this proposal to me and stuff like that. And they're asking questions and some of the questions they're asking have just really brought about a lot of clarity and helped me prioritize and say, hey, not everything, I'm not going to eat all of this big, huge buffet at once. I'm going to pick the things that are a priority right now. And these other things, yeah, they're great. They're huge. They're massive, but they can wait a little bit. They don't have to be done right now. And if those people are serious about working together, then, hey, it's 6 weeks from now or next month, let's have a conversation about this and see where things are. If they're still there, then it was a good fit. And if they're going after something else, then it wasn't meant to be. So lots of great things. And man, I just love being surrounded with people, powerful people who understand what it is that I do, what it is that I'm after. People who understand that the opportunities come, opportunities go, people that understand there are ebbs, there are flows, people who can say, you know what, Cliff, have you thought about it from this angle? And I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. That's amazing. And just so much clarity, so much discernment, surrounded by the most amazing people. Lots of moving pieces, but in this season of my life, I'm only excited about them all. There were moments during the first few weeks of this year that I was tempted to be overwhelmed by it all. There were moments where I was tempted to say, you know what, I can probably burn the candle at both ends of the stick for another week or two. And I'm like, no, I think it's time to pull back a little bit. And having some conversations with some very important people in my life have helped me get very clear about what my priorities are. Not that they told me what my priorities are, but they asked me questions to help me get clear about what my priorities are. And that has been what this season has been about. It's awesome. So yeah, when I reflect on all the time I spent with my ebook reader, my text-to-speech apps, cleaning up my email newsletter descriptions and stuff like that, when it all comes down to it, it's been a theme of what am I focused on and where is my attention going? Where is it being drawn to? It's about choosing who gets access to my mind, who gets access to my energy, most importantly, who gets access to my calendar. In this season of my life, I've really protected my morning hours. Nobody gets access to me before 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And by golly, from 1 o'clock in the afternoon until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I have some amazing things cooking, but those morning hours are mine. It's about being clear about who gets those spaces. What are the conversations that are taking place? Because over the years, I've learned that overwhelm comes only when there is too much unfiltered possibility. It's not about too much possibility. There's not too many opportunities. It's just when I'm not filtering them by what's truly important. And it's very important to me to have people in my life that can help me have the right conversation to stay grounded and get clear about what is most important right now. And if you're looking for a group of people where you could have those kind of conversations, if you'd like to do life with me over the next year as you're on your own entrepreneurial journey, as a content creator, as a thought leader who's looking to make a powerful difference in people's lives, and you're looking to take all of the options that people are saying, do this, do that, do this, do that. If you'd like to have a little bit more peace and clarity and get very crystal clear what is most important to you, and then have a group of people there who are absolutely committed to your success, that's the Next Level Mastermind. If you are interested, email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Podcast. It's a man.